This week, we're celebrating 1 year of Degrees of Science, our special project where we sit down and talk one-on-one with experts in the field of science, STEM, and weather to learn about their career and what's going on in their field of expertise. And we started off our project, the very first interview, with a meteorologist that worked with National Geographic and Disney Plus on the series America the Beautiful.
We did get to see thunderstorms that created tornadoes.
Yes, yeah, that was, at the end of the day, that was one of the main goals of our deployments out to get these storms, because they had this shot list that they wanted basically from us to be able to work it into the various stories that they wanted to tell as they were producing the series for Nat Geo. So it wasn't all about tornadoes. You know, they wanted just a lot of interesting shots with storms developing, different reveals of storms, things to help them really show the majesty, if you will, the magnitude, the scale of these storms. But you could tell from the feedback, and again, from the shot list, tornadoes were kind of the final nugget that they really wanted from us. They wanted specific reveals, you know, shots where maybe we're flying low to the ground, the camera's looking down, and then you're looking at the prairie, and then you tilt up and you see the tornado, this big reveal to sort of show the menace that it is.
That first time when you were on Space Shuttle Columbia, y'all launch up, what was that feeling like the first time that you didn't have gravity? Just that being in space, what was that feeling like?
Well, first of all, you get into this situation of hypergravity, meaning when the main engines light, you get catapulted into the air. And what that does is push you back in your seat to 3 to 3.5 times your weight. So you feel really heavy and can't barely move. And it's extremely noisy as you're going off into space. But as soon as we get to around 200 nautical miles above the Earth and the engine's cut off, you go from all this noise and chaos to just smooth as glass. And then you begin to see things kind of rise up before you. And that's your checklist or your gloves that you're taking off or your helmet that you're taking off. And you know that I am in space.
How is it that prints that were from dinosaurs 100 million years ago, how is it that we can still see those in the riverbed there?
That's a fantastic question, and it's something that takes a little bit of imagination. You know, we think of the dinosaurs walking through the Paluxy River as it looks today, and that's not what happened. Things were very, very different back then. The river didn't exist for millions and millions of years after this time period. So at that time, the dinosaurs were walking along a seashore, kind of an intertidal zone that had very thick, sticky mud. And so the tracks that they left behind were very well preserved. They had a lot of detail. And then within a few, maybe hours, even up to a few days before those tracks had a chance to dry out and crumble away, the tide came in and laid layers of sediment over the top of those tracks, and that's what preserved them. And now the river, all these millions of years later, is exposing those tracks. It washes away those layers of sediment that were laid down, and that's what allows those tracks to still be seen today.
What is the turbulence and just the flight through a hurricane? What does that feel like while you are up there working?
It can be pretty smooth sometimes, believe it or not, especially some of the more developed hurricanes where they're just kind of stabilized. And then you get missions like we experienced last week with Ian, right as it was making landfall, continued intensification, rapid intensification. And so you get those pockets of turbulence. It's a lot, you know, kind of like a roller coaster flying through a car wash at the same time, where you're just inundated with precipitation, and then you get pockets of turbulence where it's a kind of a series of updrafts and downdrafts where you can, you know, lose or gain several hundred feet, 1,000 feet in altitude going through an eye wall instantaneously almost.
All right, so you made that sound a lot calmer than it is. What does a 1,000-foot drop instantaneously feel like in turbulence when you're in a plane?
Yeah, it's hard to describe with words. You really have to experience it. But again, it's kind of like a series of updrafts and downdrafts. So the plane will just kind of be flying along, and then you hit, you know, kind of a zero G, where basically you're just flying straight up, and then you can slam back down again and back up and back down until you get through the worst of it. And so you can imagine what that feels like. Any roller coaster that you've been on where you've kind of experienced some of that pit of your stomach feeling, that time's about 10.